What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, former world champion turned boxing Hall of Fame trainer, Mexican superstar, trainer, and former boxer, Robert Garcia, weighs in on the possibilities of fellow countrymen, 4-division world champion, currently the unified WBC, WBA super middleweight world champion, superstar boxer Saul Canelo Alvarez, and the fact that Saul Canelo Alvarez ate quote-unquote tainted meat in Mexico, thus the reason why he tested positive for clenbuterol in his system. Now, this is footage that was somewhat swept under the rug, to say the least. It didn't go viral. It wasn't talked about, okay? And Robert Garcia had a lot to say. And Robert Garcia, stated that every Mexican boxer or athlete uses the meat as an excuse, as an alibi to why they test positive. Robert Garcia even says in his clip, he even says, well, I eat meat there all the time, so I guess I'll test positive as well. And the reporter also stated, well, I guess I'll test positive because I eat a lot of meat out of Mexico as well myself. And then Robert Garcia went on to say, the problem is Canelo Alvarez is a multi-millionaire. So I'm sure he gets the best meat possible, the best beef possible. He says that, a lot of guys, he says, I can respect, a bantamweight that is, 10-0, 13-0, and is just making a couple of $1,000s. He stated, but Canelo Alvarez is a completely different story because Canelo Alvarez is a multi-millionaire, and I'm sure he gets the best beef possible. He says now, it is possible that you could test positive for clenbuterol because there is situations where, they fill up the animals with steroids to spread them out. He says, so it is possible, but you would have to eat a lot of that to test positive in your system. And Canelo Alvarez has tested positive twice. Now, we heard British superstar boxer, former cruiserweight unified world champion turned heavyweight contender, Tony Bellew, after Canelo Alvarez defeated former WBA super middleweight British superstar boxer world champion Caleb Smith. He stated that it's impossible for Canelo Alvarez to just be going through these weight classes and these weight divisions and carrying his power and just walking right through them. He said, give me a break. The next thing we're going to see is Canelo Alvarez walking through heavyweights, right? Now, Canelo Alvarez is a 4-division champion. He went from 154, 160, 68, and 75. But to Canelo Alvarez's defense, in my opinion, he hasn't fought the best opposition when doing so. It's not like he's fighting the absolute best. Is he fighting quality opponent? Yes. Is he fighting the best opponents? No. When he went up to 175, he fought the lesser of the champions, right? Former accomplished superstar boxer Sergey Crusher Kovalev, who was the WBO 175-pound champion, but he was seen as the weak link out of all the champions, right? Most people had Arthur Beterbiev, and they still have Arthur Beterbiev, the best 175-pounder today's time. He's unified. And then you have Dimitri Bivol as well. And Canelo Alvarez didn't fight either of those guys. He fought a guy who was far past his prime, who's already been knocked out and stopped by Andre Ward, later Alvarez. He was in wars with Anthony Yarde just the fight before fighting Canelo Alvarez on short notice, all right? A quick turnaround, and Sergey Kovalev just seemed not to assert himself in that fight. And then he went to 168, and he fought Rocky Fielding to become the WBA interim champion, and now he's fought Caleb Smith for the unification bout as David Benavidez, who is seen as the best 168-pounder super middleweight. He lost his belt on the scale, and Canelo Alvarez fought the vacant WBC title against Caleb Smith, and Caleb Smith holds the WBA title. So Caleb Smith is, again, the weaker link out of the champions at 168. Most people see David Benavidez as number one, he's undefeated. He never lost his titles in the ring. And most people see Caleb Plant at number 2. And Caleb Plant is the IBF undefeated super middleweight world champion. And he's a superstar boxer. So people peg them as the best. And at 160, he hasn't fought the best opposition at 160 there is to offer at 160. At 154, he did fight some quality opposition. And people peg him as having the best resume because Canelo Alvarez fought and beat Shane Mosley. Shane Mosley was coming off of a loss to Manny Pacquiao and a loss to Floyd Mayweather. He lost twice to Vernon Forrest. He lost twice to Winky Wright. So Shane Mosley was 40 years old when Canelo Alvarez beat him. And Shane Mosley is a career 147-pounder, okay? So these are the guys Canelo Alvarez has fought. But at 54 and at 60, he had Jamal Charlo, Demetrius Andrade, Billy Joe Saunders. There's Jamel Charlo when he was at 54. Quality, young talent, but he's fought guys that were out of their prime, or he fought the weaker links. So, it was greatly orchestrated for him to become a 4-division world champion. Now, with that said, he could have fought Demetrius Andrade at 160 to be undisputed. He chose to go to 68 and fight Rocky Fielding after claiming he wanted to be undisputed at 160. He was one title away from doing so, and then he went up and fought Rocky Fielding for a WBA interim title. That lets you know everything you need to know. So when he says that, when Tony Bellew and you have Ashley Theophane and a lot of British boxers that weren't happy with the outcome and thought that Caleb Smith had an opportunity, and he just didn't assert himself as well. You had Demetrius Andrade, you had Joe Calzaghe, and you had Sergio Mora, who were commentating on the fight, and they all stated that Caleb Smith is just not asserting himself. Didn't come here to win. He's being defensive. Mikey Garcia, ironically enough, the younger brother and 4-division world champion, superstar boxer, Mexican superstar boxer, Mikey Garcia also stated that Caleb Smith just came to survive. He was trying to be defensive on the ropes. He didn't use his height, his reach. He had a 9-inch reach advantage, a 7-inch height advantage over Canelo Alvarez, and he used none of it. With that said, so when they say he's going through divisions and carrying his power, next thing you know, he'll do it at heavyweight, I have to disagree. Because I simply think that, Canelo Alvarez is just not fighting the best. He's fighting quality, but not the best at these divisions to become world champion. So that leads us to what Robert Garcia had to say. He said that everybody uses this tainted meat in Mexico as an alibi. And Canelo Alvarez failed twice, right? And the WBC sanctioned body, who seems to be, in partnership with Canelo Alvarez, they even up the amount of clenbuterol you can have in your system, before you are held accountable for using any type of performance enhancer or having any type of advantage in this case. So, like Robert Garcia stated, he stated that Canelo Alvarez is not the only one. He says every Mexican athlete or boxer uses this as an alibi because you cannot tell. But the thing about it is, Robert Garcia stated when it comes to Canelo Alvarez, there's a difference because Canelo Alvarez is a multi-millionaire, and I'm sure he's not eating meat from the vendors on the corners, right? He says, I'm sure he's eating the best of the best, and I'm sure that's not tainted. He says, but who am I? He could be right. He said, who am I to say it's not possible? It could be possible. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. So Robert Garcia stated that, he's not surprised, but this is an alibi used by every single Mexican boxer in the sport of boxing that tests positive for any type of performance enhancers. They always use the fact that Mexico has bad meat and a history of tainted meat. And this is what I stated before. Yeah, Canelo Alvarez has to be responsible. He's a professional athlete. And like Robert Garcia stated, he's a professional athlete at the highest level in his sport. He's considered by a lot of people to be pound for pound best boxer in the world and the face of the sport of boxing. He's a multi-millionaire, okay? So Canelo Alvarez has to be accountable for what goes in his system. And he has to pay attention and it's irresponsible not to know what goes in your system when you're a professional athlete. So let's just listen to one part of what Robert Garcia had to say regarding this.
That's what every Mexican that comes up positive, it's a meat.
Oh, really? No.
So you heard what Robert Garcia said. He said every Mexican that comes up positive, they use the meat. The meat is always a reasoning for them testing positive, right?
That's the excuse for every Mexican that tests positive. It was because of the meat, the beef. Like those guys, they're especially Canelo, multi-millionaire. He's not gonna be just eating fucking meat out of a fucking carniceria del mercado. I'm sure he's gonna get like what kind of meat do you eat? Like organic shit and all that, right? Like a cow that was raised, the right way, not from a fucking mercado.
So you see, he said, I'm sure Canelo being a multi-millionaire, he's not going to be eating meat from a vendor, right? He's going to get the best meat, organic meat, the best meat possible. And now to Robert Garcia's defense, he did say, well, anything is possible. Maybe it is possible, but I highly doubt that Canelo Alvarez, at the level he is, the success he's had, and the fact that he's a multi-millionaire, the revenue he generated, he's not going to be eating tainted meat or just meat from a vendor. So this is an alibi used to defend, to put himself in position. And this is something that the sport of boxing needs to investigate. Regardless if you eat tainted meat out of Mexico or not, right? You have to be held accountable. Point blank and period. Whether you have to get your meat imported, whether you have to go outside, whether you have to stop eating beef or meat in Mexico, you have to be held accountable. The sport of boxing, the boxing commission, the sanction bodies, they need to hold these boxers accountable. If you know that you are in area where the meat is tainted, then you cannot digest that meat. You can't take the chance. It's a 50-50 possibility that you could test positive, that you could digest clenbuterol in the case of Canelo Alvarez. So there's no doubt he digested clenbuterol. The fact that he's using the beef in Mexico as an alibi should not be allowed. Nobody, and this is not just Canelo Alvarez, this is every athlete. Whether you're in Puerto Rico, whether you're in Africa, whether you're in the United States, whether you're in Las Vegas, whether you're in your UK, if the way you live, where you reside, has a history of tainted meat and a history of their animals having been injected with any type of steroids, you have to be held accountable, right? Because that is nobody's fault but your own if you digest tainted meat. That's your fault. Point blank and period. It's nobody else's fault. You have to be held accountable for what you digest, for what you put in your system. It's just like Billy Joe Saunders. He tested positive for a banned substance when when he was getting ready to fight Demetrius Andrade in a title fight, and he was pulled from the fight because what he was using is on the banned list, but it was not banned in the United Kingdom, okay? And so he was pulled from the fight. Why? Because the United States stated that, listen, well, you may use this to a certain limit in the United Kingdom, but it's not legal here in the States. And so he was removed from that fight. And they held him accountable for what he put in his system, although it was over the counter. We can't have guys like Jarrell Big Baby Miller be suspended for years or be held accountable for, performance enhancers and testing positive after he said, well, listen, I digested meat as well. But no, because there's not a history in the United States in certain places of having tainted meat, he got held accountable. But because there's a history in Mexico, Alvarez doesn't be held accountable. No, he should be held accountable for what he put in his system because he knows there's a history of that in Mexico. So Robert Garcia had an interesting take when he says that all Mexican fighters and athletes use this as an alibi. And I agree, this should not be used as an alibi, especially at the level Canelo Alvarez is at currently. But that's all I got for y'all. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed? Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Raw. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.